I tried to put together the experience that we had on systemic design as association and as a research group in Politecnico di Torino with the Systemic Design Lab. But first of all, a couple of words about the Systemic Design Association, the SDA, that is organizing the RSD, the Relating System Thinking and Design Symposium, every year. And this year we are at the 13th edition. It is a global community of practitioners, educators, research, and students that are interested in systemic design approaches, methodologies, and try to use these way to approach the challenges in order to face the wicked problems that we are facing nowadays. So try to understand how we can serve the complexity and finding solutions for the issues related to the social aspect, environmental aspect, but also policy, social economy aspect, and so on. The Systemic Design Association was founded in 2018 in a formal way, like a no-profit and cultural association registered in Norway. But it was, as the number of edition of RSD already tell you, it was already an informal group of people before the 2018. Why we try to focalize our energy and also the knowledge from experts from all around the world about systemic design, because I think that we all in the association think that the approach of the systemic design has a really holistic approach to face the actual problems and seeing the system as a whole and not looking at the single part and element, trying to fix just one part of a bigger problem that we are facing. And also because the systemic design recognize this dynamic as a complex system that we are living, and how these elements are all interconnected, considering the broader implication, how we can act in that complexity in order to define really a path for changing and for the transition towards a more sustainable perspective and work. Systemic design has a range of different tools and methods that include also the system thinking, the complexity theory, the design thinking, and it put together, let me say, different also disciplines in order to define with the foresight design also the new perspective for a better world. In a theoretical way, that is the name of my speech, between theory and practice. So in some minutes, I want to give you some basics on the theory with also then some examples on the methodology in order to understand better the real practices that can be related to this theory. The main concept is that the output of a process can become input for another one. In that way, we are imitating the nature, also with the anthropic action, and with that kind of new interconnections of elements, we create a new sustainable system. We have 5 pillars to take into account. First of all, it is the relations that we generate when we are defining the systems. So the fact that the designers with the systemic design are able to redesign or design as a new relations between elements. And that relation generates the system itself, considering that the results is more than the sum of the single element. So that is just an example of what a mobile is a complex system, but we cannot describe a mobile phone just with the elements that are and the components that are inside it, because the result then is more than what we can see in that picture. The second pillar is related to the output and input, the fact that we can generate and we can design a continuous flows of matter, energy, and information in order to make the system open and resilient to even if it is a system designed by the man. In that picture, I try to simplify it with an image of a tree that release in the environment a lot of leaves in that season, but those are not a waste for the tree. Those are input for the soil that start to be rich in the nutrients. So as the tree and the nature is using all the output as an input for different rain, in the same way also the action that the man's and the human being are doing should be imitating that kind of process. In that way, we generate systems that are autopoietic, bringing back the concept from Maturana and Varela about the autopoiesis and cognition, the fact that the system built in that way is able to maintain itself, reproduce itself in a sort of co-evolutions together with the environment that is around, that is like a cell that can modify itself in order to, even if it is always a cell, but inside all the elements can change, reacting to the modification of the environment and the situation. That give us a strong value to the context where we are acting, and how the system built and designed in a certain context, it is unique somehow, and we cannot replace it or replicate it in another place. But the context where we are designing the system is fundamental and give an imprinting to the system itself. For example, even if we think of a very simple burger with potato, we can realize if we look at all the industrial processes that stay behind it and the supply chain related to the different ingredients, we realize that, that even a simple burger with chips have a global impact, and that should not reflect a specific context at all. The last one, the last pillar, is bringing some concept from the last book of Don Norman, Design for a Better World, where he's speculating about the humanity-centered design and how that kind of now the design, the role of the design should be more related to a humanity perspective, that the value that we generate as a designer should be a benefit for the society as a whole and for the human beings in a larger consideration. The last book, he was the theorist also of the human-centered design in 90s. So now the fact that he moved towards this concept of humanity-centered design is extremely crucial for our reflection. So how we can apply systemic design as a methodology, and what are the different contributions that we can gain from the systemic design. First of all, the approach is, as I said before, an holistic approach. So the philosophy that stay behind all the methodology, methods, and tools that we are going to see in a while is going over the mechanicistic way to consider the world, but having this world perspective as a holistic view to the world and the problems that the design should face. The methodology is a systemic design methodology that uses a set of methods in design to allow us to make certain choices and define the boundaries of our investigation. We will see some tools with the systemic design methodology because the methods and the tools used are necessary to achieve the objective that we want to have, to reach with the systemic design approach. And the tools are all the resources that help us to develop and support the activities. The systemic design methodology is a set of methods and tools that support designer and in general the design process to define this better world that is dynamic, a dynamic system that put in balance the social aspect with the environmental one and the economic one. This methodology is flexible and can be applied in different contexts, like the value chain with big enterprises, small and medium enterprises, in general with industrial sectors, but also with territories like cities, cultural heritage, regions in general, and inside organization, or in the definition of the policy, with the policy design, for example. In the systemic design methodology, we have 4 steps. The first one is understanding the complexity, then understanding and defining what are the challenges and opportunities, so we can use them as a leverage point to define the system and design it. And the last one is to evaluate the system itself. What are the benefits that we can generate on the context that we are acting? This is a methodology that, as systemic design methodology, is iterative, and it cannot be so linear as I explained it before, but every time we had one step, we reiterate it many times in order to really change the previous steps and understand better what are the goals, the boundaries, the opportunities, and so on. The first step is understanding the methodology, understanding the complexity, and the methods that we use is the holistic diagnosis that can be done for the environment, the context, the territory, and also of a single company. It depends on the application that we are going to analyze. And the result is a complexity map. I will show you an example of what we are doing. So even if we have a specific sector, in that case is a company working in Ivrea, the Olivetti one. So probably you know that important company. First, we did this holistic diagnosis of the territory, understanding not only the economical part of the area, but also the demography, education, history, environmental issue, and so on. That the complexity map with the holistic diagnosis is the basis to go further with understanding what are the challenges of this complex system. And often this step is done involving the stakeholder with co-design session and focus group. In that step, we analyze the problems and the potentialities of the territory, and we start identifying the possible solution and best practices all around the world. That is an example of practice in that sense, where all the challenges are grouped in topics. So the social one, the productive one, the environmental, and the economic. And then for each of them, we identify multiple opportunities that will be the basis of the next step that will be designing the system itself. So through a systemic metrics, we will evaluate all the opportunities and selecting the ones that will be implemented in our system. And that is an example of the complexity map, where we define the new system and how we put it in connection the different elements and the elements that maybe are not in connection before. The last step is evaluating the system itself. So try to quantify the outcomes and the impacts that the systemic project can give us, envisioning the future and also try to engage all the stakeholders with a future vision that can be absolutely disruptive. This is an example of maps where we define the impacts and the outcomes in terms of scale, so in a micro scale, in a meso or macro scale, and in terms of time, so in what we expect in the short term, medium term, and long term. So in a very short way, I try to give you an overview of what systemic design is through what we are doing with the Systemic Design Association and the Systemic Design Lab at Politecnico di Torino. But I want to stop now in order to give space also to Bruce and to then discuss all together about that concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Silvia. That's so exciting to see how those fields, which are so difficult to connect, design thinking, very human-centered, focused, and system thinking, are connecting. I think it's great. And I would like to hand over to Bruce, and then we'll have a discussion and question after Bruce has presented his part.
Thanks, Silvia. That's fascinating. And it relates so much to the things that are important in my heart. I'm actually teaching a class at the University of Colorado Boulder, where I am a professor this semester, that combines many of these methodologies. We're doing a three horizons approach with a stakeholder analysis and backcasting, using a multi-level perspective method, looking for feedback loops, the same kinds of sets of methodologies. And of course, my program that I teach in is environmental design. So we have a lot in common. And my background is actually in city and regional planning and systems ecology. So I think I have a kind of trajectory that parallels a lot of the people in the community. So I'm delighted to be here. I feel like this is my tribe, my group, as much as the transformations community is my group. So I'm eager to explore opportunities for us to work together and to combine forces and to share ideas between our two communities. So I'll give you a little background about the transformations community, and we can get a sense of where those synergies lie. So this is a meeting of the transformations community, one of the conferences we held last year. This one was in Prague. We also held a conference in Sydney at the same time, and we had one online at the same time. And we had one in Maine that was more or less at the same time. And this was, of course, drove my staff absolutely batty, trying to manage 4 conferences across that range of time zones and coordinate them so they could use similar platforms that you're using, the Zoom platforms, the HOVA platforms, to create cross-pollination and conversation. So we had about 800 people communicating. And so who are we that we would do all this effort to come together biannually as we do? So as it says here, we consider ourselves a community of pracademics, people who have one foot in practice and one foot in research and science and action and reflection. So we think of ourselves as both action researchers and reflective practitioners in the field of transformation, sustainability transformations. And so a lot of our theoretical foundations are very similar to yours. I think the most common theoretical foundation for folks is the multi-level perspective and thinking about how do we scale up niche innovations to foster and catalyze sustainability transformations. So, and we were founded, I think, in the same sense our communities are drawn to action, drawn to putting these ideas into work and not just theorizing or observing. And so we learn through practice, we learn through engagement with our partner communities. And then every couple of years we get together, but we also have our website, our newsletters, our workshops. We have a number of projects underway, currently in AI, coral reef conservation and transformations initiatives and organizations, where we draw together sub-communities of practice to share ideas and develop work together with a core principle of co-design. We literally use the design, vocabulary in our work. Let's see, I'll go on to the next one. Yeah, so, and it's interactive. Our conferences, we try to move away from talking heads and have lots of engagement, lots of co-learning workshops, movement, arts, try to make these places where we can grow our connection to one another, because being global, it's so hard to have community. It feels lonely sometimes doing the work we do. Transformation, sustainability is so far away and so hard to reach. Part of it is how do we transform ourselves, and how do we maintain hope and commitment in a world of wounds, as Aldo Leopold once said. And so, we're really interested in nurturing our community as well as informing our community, and bringing up people in our field is a real important thing. So we have early career events in association with our conferences every couple of years. These 4 terms are kind of what we landed on as sort of like our strange attractors, our bywords. The idea that there's temperance is the idea that we balance sort of individual expression and collective power, and we want to foster creativity and co-create our direction and outcome as a community. The 3 other T's, it was convenient to develop them all in T's, were transdisciplinarity as a kind of epistemological commitment, and really not only thinking across disciplines, but also other kinds of knowledge practices, which relates directly to translocalism, this idea that we partner. Our work is often partnered with communities, and so we have a very diverse geographies and cultures. We're very attentive to working in different geographies, to cultivating connections and leadership in the global South, to addressing the legacy of colonialism, and thinking about how to create a more just and equitable a knowledge space within our flawed but very vital institutions. So we do things like networks, communities of practice, learning labs. We're trying to develop that kind of shared learning commitment, and also understand how to create and maintain these structures, so that this kind of dynamic learning, this transformative learning, can take place. And that's the last of the T's there, is transformative learning. It's about disruptive change. Transformations is about disruptive change. So it's about change within. And we're trying to change ourselves while we foster and catalyze change in the communities we partner with, taking their leadership, of course, not bringing change to them, but enabling people to facilitate the deep shifts that they recognize are necessary to achieve sustainability transformations. So that's why I'm a weaver, not a director, because it's all about creating and sustaining community, creating kind of shared purpose, and both in the work we do and in the community that we support. So this horrendogram here, we really should get pay more attention to our design, I think. And we worked with Cheryl a little bit. We were stunned how amazing you are, Cheryl, as a designer, as someone who can create not only interaction, but the full-bodied expression of design coming to creating and supporting community. So impressed by your work. So this is a little bit of our work. We have this pathway that we demonstrate here of where we've been over the last 10 plus years, with 6 conference series on a biannual basis with a variety of partners, mostly European based, but we are trying to expand beyond our European core right now. So we have been in Santiago, we were in Sydney, as I mentioned, and this upcoming year we're in Kruger National Park, of all places. We're partnering with Wits University in South Africa, and the Earth Systems Governance Group, to create a conference down there. At the same time, we're doing a conference in York, UK, and online, and we're partnering with Sustainability Research and Innovation Congress to do support their conference in Kenya. So we're very interested in creating these horizontal relationships with other co-travelers in the ecosystem of change work and change research, which we think of this as an invitation to join you and to find ways to work together with you. Earth Systems Governance, as I mentioned, is another group we work with closely. So we want to find ways to sort of cross-fertilize across our communities, introduce. We have an extensive listserv. We'd love to advertise your events, promote the work that you do in our newsletter. We have 3 publications ongoing right now. I know you have a very active publication series coming out of the conference. Really admirable the way you've managed that. And so, maybe we can find ways to share publication and outreach opportunities moving toward the future. Be really excited to do that. And of course, invite you all to our conferences that are coming up. You don't have to go to South Africa. It's delightful if you would join us there, but we also have the online conference, which we make very accessible and try to make as dynamic as possible. It's actually probably our best attended event, since it is a low barrier to entry. And that's it. So please feel free to reach out to me about the conference. I'll put the website in chat if you're interested in checking it out. Our registration is kind of, we're claiming it's closing in November, but it's really closing in January. So plenty of times to consider whether you'd like to join us. And I'd like to actively work on offering you the opportunity to design whole sessions, or to bring, to share some of the insights of your community at our upcoming conference, as well as in other ways through all the various means and channels of outreach that we maintain. That's it.
Thank you, Bruce. Right on time, leaving us 20 minutes of discussion. Maybe before we move into discussion and discussing what we can do, I saw there's a question in the chat from the group, and maybe some of the others have any questions, anything you would still like to understand from Bruce. We had one question from Anya, Bruce, asking what temperance as a principle of your work really means. If you could elaborate on this a bit.
Yeah, I think the idea of temperance was born from the notion is that we have a shared identity, but we have a diversity of identities. And so we want to honor both of those intentions, to be a community that really centers diversity of perspective and epistemic diversity at our core. So we're, that, how do we capture that sort of dynamic balance between individual expression and collective identity and collective power? As someone who studied networks and communities of practice my whole life, that's that kind of organizational intention, where it's not hierarchical. You don't have a single purpose, a single agenda that you pursue with a sort of top-down dimension, but it's very horizontal. And the purpose is, and it's voluntary, and the purpose is to support shared learning and co-create your direction and outcome. So that's where that T came from. We had trouble with finding the last T, to be honest, but temperance is what we came up with.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Well, the online conference is more or less at the same time. I should have mentioned the times. So the York conference is going to be in June, and the Kruger conference is going to be in mid-August of 25.
Yeah.
And the online conference is more or less at the same time.
Okay. And there was a question if you're planning something online as well.
Yes. So in August 25, we have an online conference. We try to keep it inexpensive. We have also various different prices available for early career researchers and researchers in the global South. And we're very open to creative workshop and presentation proposals. So as you can see, if you visit the website, we even have different criteria to evaluate different kinds of proposals that are sort of either interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary, in part because of our alliance with Earth System Governance, which is a bit more of a interdisciplinary, kind of a little bit more of a conventional academic organization. So we're trying to preserve that sort of creativity at the core of our work. We even think of the conferences as a research initiative in their own right. How can we what does conferencing look like, in this, post-COVID era? How can we create community through online engagement? So we're playing with ideas there. We're trying to foster a lot of partnerships with the arts, and in talking with Cheryl, I know that's the same thing you all do, and I can see this in the commitment and the organization of your conference. I think we have a similar ethos when it comes to convening and conferencing.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I've also posted the link on the chat to your website, so people can directly go and check out all the deadlines. Yeah, and I would propose we spend maybe the last 15 minutes looking into ideas that Bruce and Silvia may have on how we could collaborate, but also if people in the group would like to bring up ideas, please feel free. Type them in the chat, raise your hand, or use the board. But maybe first, I just hand over to Silvia to briefly speak about ideas you may have had while listening to Bruce, to see what came up onto your mind.
Yeah, I think that also another concept can be can be a driver in that discussion, is the concept that Bruce mentioned as translocalism, because in my presentation I mentioned one pillar on acting local, acting in a local way. So I think that we have a sort of connection in that sense, and probably the concept that Bruce bring to the discussion can help us also to evolve the localism itself, but going further in it. I don't know if someone just opened the microphone, or yeah. So I think that aspect is an interesting point of connection between our disciplines, if we can call it like this.
Yeah, that focus on scale, on action across scale, between scale. What does it mean to foster change between scales? That's at the core of our commitment. Many of our members work directly with communities, but are recognize that that work alone does not have the potential to foster broader systemic change. And so what does it mean to create those translocal and sustain those translocal connections is a big emphasis in our community.
Yeah, probably we need to first share a taxonomy, let me say, or different vocabularies in order to, because the goal is the general goal is the same, and we use a different taxonomy. So one input to work together can be first working on the language that we use, and being really on the same page with our glossaries and taxonomy.
I think ironically, like one of the things we're most on the same page about is boundary crossing and boundary spanning and being boundary institutions, with the idea of that sort of partial sharing is a possibility, both within our community and between our communities. That sort of functional bridging across epistemological difference is we're perfectly happy with that, as opposed to seeking a kind of unity.
That sounds interesting. other concrete ideas how we could do this? How would this take shape? And how much do we want to standardize, and how much do we want to leave open maybe? So what do we share? What is the common core where we say we want to be alike? And maybe it's fine for parts of it to be different. As I was thinking about it, I was thinking that transformation is more of an overarching goal. And most of us, I think, are happy with transformation being a goal. And we bring methodologies and methods and tools, and your community has plenty of them. And I understand they're very multivocal and very diverse as well. So how could it connect? What would be very concrete ideas from your sides and also from the room? If there's something in the room, raise your hand and I'll also look into the chat.
You know, my gut is that what you just put your finger on, Anna, is really core. I think a lot of the work we did a large scale analysis of our membership. We did 65 interviews with members in 2023, and then did a content analysis and published a few papers, and are now publishing another paper on like, what does it mean to be a transformations practitioner anyway? You know, what does it mean to be an action researcher and a reflective practitioner? What are the core practices and processes associated with that kind of way of being in the world, and how is that somehow at odds with our you know, educational institutions? I think people in our community have the same kind of struggles that probably a lot of people in yours do, and kind of fitting into conventional institutions with their kind of silos and separations of theory and practice. So I think the methods and the tools are so exciting. Whenever I listen to presentations in your community, the sort of portfolio of practices and how they're manifest, and not just conceptual, but they're like templates and processes that one can use, would be super useful to be provided to and to be offered up to our community, because a lot of the work that people in our community do is co-design and co-production. You know, it's like trying to work directly with diverse communities to identify objectives, to then do knowledge co-production together to identify you know, ways of fostering transformative action at a variety of scales. And so that matchup is really there, I think, in terms of what we're offering the world, what we're trying to enhance.
Yeah, there was one question from Victor who asked about the language. He said, so if as a academic community you want to attract practitioners who work at the boundaries of being practitioners and academics, so if a real practitioner comes to your conference, will they understand the language? Will they understand what we are talking about?
You know, we've struggled with that. Yeah, I suppose you have too. You know, do we want our core operations to be open to practitioners, stakeholders, community members, you know, politicians, people in corporate settings, philanthropists, the whole range of people who we engage with? And I think we actually pulled back a little from that. We see our core, we're servicing people who engage with that range of perspective and place, but it's the engager, it's the process specialist that we're really focusing with, who can bring together this diverse community, as opposed to trying to open up our conferences to practitioners per se. We're trying to really focus on enhancing the capacity of people who work with practitioners. So it's a little bit of the train the trainer kind of mentality, as opposed to actually, you know, offering direct service to people within communities. We work with people who work in communities, if you get what I mean. So we do have, I mean, you can't have a community practice without a shared language, right? You can't just have anything go. So we do make an effort to kind of elevate the level of discourse by focusing on specifically on action researchers and reflective practitioners who engage with a diversity of community members.
One way we use to, from one side, to engage the stakeholder for the co-design session, that I totally agree with Bruce, that is the process. The focus in the process is very important because we have a sort of guarantee in the success of the design and the project later on. Because if the stakeholder and the actors are involved since the beginner and they feel that the project is their own project, even if it is a project, a long-term project, it guarantees that at the end, all the actors are looking in the same direction and working for the same goal. So it is absolutely fundamental. And also in that session, but not only, using the visualization as a tool for helping people with different background, with different sensitiveness also in a certain topic, to really work together. And using these complexity maps or gigamaps help to this session of co-design and help to having this same language and looking at the certain project in the same way and using the same language to develop the project itself.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think when we bring practitioners into our conferences or workshops or online engagement, it's generally in the context of a transdisciplinary project in which they are sort of equal partners. And so we want to introduce, how the variety of perspectives and expertise that different stakeholders bring to the table are then brought into association in a productive way. And so that's kind of a criterion for evaluating, what would be a good offering for our various publications and conferences. Yeah, I see a question here for Anya. Inner
A
transformation.
suggestion from
Yeah, I really connect to that. Our York event, in June, mid-June next year, is almost fully committed and devoted to focusing on inner transformations. And we're trying to do some really creative work around that and actually do some of that work with ourselves at that meeting. So, the IDGs and other kind of efforts to foster inner transformations are really key to us. And that has a lot to do with our fostering our own well-being and also our own sort of transformational process as we do this kind of work. So we're part of the system and we're trying to transform ourselves. Yeah, I'd love to discuss like tangible ways we could work together. Maybe develop co-offerings in the future to our shared communities, whether that's at the sort of workshop scale or more broadly even at the conference scale. We're very open to kind of having shared forums and shared publication and maybe developing shared data sets or offerings. We have a systems education catalog that we are creating and that we're offering on our website. So the idea of maybe some of these tools and books and offerings that your members of your community has created, collating and providing a sort of a set of those resources that people could use and access, that would be great. Creating a page of sort of methods and practices and systems design and hosting that on our website, open to all that kind of thing. So, looking forward to during our part.
And we can do the same in systemicdesign.org website, having some of yours tools or books and yeah, start with that kind of exchange first on the website. That seems to me to be the short-term goal that we can reach, and then build on more more higher goals, like having some session together in the conferences or publications together. Yeah, it can be further way to practical connect the two institutions.
Fantastic. Let's do it. I know Cheryl is sort of our point of contact, and we'll
Yeah.
be in touch with you. And I'll be attending the sessions all this week. So excited about the work you all are doing and want to learn more myself.
That sounds amazing. I've taken down 3 points, and I think we'll follow up on them. One is a link to all the resources and books and publications and conferences already existing, and sharing more educational resource. And I think one is for all of our members and for the people here in the room to actually use this resource and join the conferences, and also reach out to you as they develop ideas, and yeah, have something to share where they would like to join.
Yeah.
So that's why we are here, to create a bit of a drive, right, and a bit of a flow towards each other.